Hello, welcome back to X-Men Classics. This is episode number 19, and in this episode we're going to go over issues 37 to 39. A three-parter, yes, a three-parter, which deals with the epic. This three-parter wraps up the storyline for Factor 3. Yep. And here is the cover for the first part of the storyline. Issue 37 would look like debut of the Mutant Master. Now, at the end of the previous issue, you saw the debut of a certain Shadow character, which is revealed at the start of this issue. It's a new character called Changeling. Here is his face. That is Changeling. No, he is unrelated to the DC character. And this is about, 13 years before Beast Boy changes the name of Changeling. Changeling is a relatively minor villain who appears in this story, and he's later revealed to be in a flashback later on. The issue starts out with Changeling watching footage of something that happened exactly 5 issues before the storyline, before the three-parter started. And you see him sitting on some kind of space shuttle, a flying saucer, and he goes to attack the plane that the X-Men are on. So the plane fires a something. It misses the plane. So in order to protect the passengers of the plane, the X-Men, with one suitcase, this is Angel doing this, they jump out of a plane, and Cyclops fires his optic blast and destroys the device. And after they destroy that, how are they gonna stop their landing? So They have Jean use her telepathy. Pretty much all the X-Men use their powers, except for Beast. Yep. You have Jean Grey slowing down a little bit. You have Angel using his wings. Cyclops using his optic blast to fire some remains of the device. And then Iceman does something really good. He uses his ice slide to slow down their descent. And of course you have Beast falling off, but everybody still lives, and they battle the spider robot that Spider-Man himself fought a couple issues back. Yes, they actually fight one of those robots, and it turns out that was not the only one, because Factor 3 sends out 2 more. And the X-Men battles them for a while, and then they get captured. First they go to some strange fog, and they get captured, and they're being put on trial apparently for treason against the mutants, and their jury is the Vanisher, Eunice the Untouchable, the Blob, and Mastermind. Now, of these 4 characters, for Vanisher, this is the first time since issue 2 he's been seen. As for Eunice the Untouchable and the Blob, they were last seen in issue 21. As for Mastermind, he was last seen back in issue 11, and he was turned into a statue. As for how he reverted back from being stone to being flesh, never explained. Nope. So, then Cyclops demands, where's Xavier and Banshee? And then they meet, and then Changeling says, "You are necessarily in position to be giving orders, Cyclops. But we shall forgive your unseemly arrogance for the present. You shall be warned. You are in the court of law, and anything which say must be held against you." And he makes a joke by Perry Mason. Like, what is this, what is this, a refuge from a Perry Mason room? I like that little joke. And by the way, Perry Mason was actually on the air at this point. Yep, the black and white show, not the 80s movies. And you get kind of the first appearance of the Mutant Master. You see him here in shadow. That is the Mutant Master. That is him. Sorry about that. That's my bookmark. And they show Xavier and Banshee. Apparently they're unconscious and in tubes. As for why they're kept there, I don't know. And pretty much these 4 characters recap pretty much what I just said. They recap their previous battles with them. Basically from around the first 10 issues of the series. Yes. and then it cuts away. It actually shows a good, much better picture of the Mutant Master. As for who he is, I was kind of disappointed. Even after I've read the storyline 2 or 3 times, I'm still disappointed of who he really is. Because I think maybe there was plans that he could have been Magneto, but here's the thing. In this entire first Roy Thomas run, Magneto makes 0 appearances in this entire run. Yep. He disappears. He hasn't been seen in this book at this point since issue 17. So, apparently Mutant Master wants to start like World War III, and they start some missiles out. Changeling fires a ray at the X-Men. Of course, the X-Men put in these strange little, I don't know, head devices. Yeah, and they're kept there for at least 2 panels. And then Iceman uses his powers to free him. And they take on one of Mutant Master's robots. And they try to figure out where Changeling went. And then they finally see the Mutant Master. I mean, this is a much bigger picture of him. Yeah. This is a much bigger picture of him. So, he says his desire is to rule all mutants. I'm like, okay. Sounds like a Magneto plot. I mean, this probably was writing for Magneto, but maybe Stan Lee stepped in. You can't use Magneto during this run. I'm sure Roy Thomas probably left because he wanted to use Magneto as probably the person behind Factor 3 because of his ideals. But probably for some reason, because of... My guess is the reason why this is not Magneto is because maybe Stan Lee stepped in. That's my guess. The issue ends basically says he's rid mutants. And then we turn over to issue 38 with this cover. It's actually a pretty nice cover. It's basically just Blob and the Vanisher versus the X-Men. And of course the issue picks up right where the last issue left. So anytime they have these multi-parters, they usually do pick up. This is from a different perspective, but not exactly the same exact panel they used from the previous issue. Except that for some reason, Mutant Master's visor doesn't have black, and the black is like reduced. Yeah, it is reduced. So they later get past him. They don't even fight Changeling at all. He's one villain they don't fight in this entire storyline. You see the Mutant Master kind of fully, and apparently he wears his green cloak. Let me show you. Yeah, that is him, right there. That's the Mutant Master, and he is wearing some green cloak. And then, of course, you have you have stuff showing around their place. Gorgeous arc, by the way. Then they somehow leave the place and try to warn the military about this. But apparently they go to Russia, trying to warn them about what was going on. They don't believe them, as typical writing put it. Somehow, Xavier gets awoken by Changeling. And everybody else in the factory is surprised that Changeling woke up Professor Xavier. So it cuts away to, I think, some U.S. military base, and they think they're lying about the atomic missiles, and they get away. And then there's some fighting between where the Vanisher and the Blob take on the X-Men. Well, just Jean Grey and Angel. And they fight them for several pages. And then the issue kind of ends with them being captured and accused of being assassins. And then the issue is like the Masters have his final victory. And then the issue doesn't end there. This particular issue starts a 5-part serial in a backup feature. Basically, because Stan Lee didn't have time to tell the origin of the X-Men, Roy Thomas did that himself. Well, he did this one origin story because I think he left not long after the storyline's completion. You see, in this particular story, you have Fred Duncan. You don't see him. That's him, the blonde hair guy. That's Agent Fred Duncan, who is the FBI representative to the X-Men, and apparently some mass hysteria is going on, and apparently, then of course Xavier. You see, this is kind of like his first chronological appearance after that flashback that was told back in issue 12. As a matter of fact, he even references it in his panel. He references that he's been in some kind of exile since what happened to his brother in Korea. He sets by some guards. Of course, Cyclops stops, and of course shows some footage of Cyclops stopping it, and then Charles Xavier introduces himself to Fred Duncan and some other agent. They don't say who he is, and try to get him out of there because they're surprised he got past guards. And then the story ends simply with them. It's kind of they have a mild misunderstanding, but they agree to work with him after he explains it very thoroughly. And I actually do like that, the fact that you have the FBI working with the X-Men. Briefly until the Sentinels show up, and of course you have the cover for issue 39, which has the first appearance of their individual costumes. On cover, they don't actually put the costumes so much later in the issue, because the issue is the conclusion to the Factor 3 storyline. Of course, the issue picks up where last issue lives off, and you have Iceman attacking or freezing soldiers, Mastermind working with and then you have Cyclops and Iceman take on Mastermind and Eunice, and of course Jean and Beast get freed. Blob punches Beast. Blob gets a brief scuffle with the Beast, and of course it cuts over to the other fight between where Cyclops and Iceman take on Eunice the Untouchable and Mastermind. And of course, and they probably got a clean getaway. And somehow Jean tricks Blob, thinking that the suitcase is really a bomb that they try to kill them with. That it would easily kill him. He just gets away, and the bomb goes off. And then somehow now, because the bomb went off in the distance, somehow the Soviets now believe them. Okay, so he's wondering why his plans not, and cuts it back over to Factory's headquarters, where you have Mutant Master. He's wondering where Changeling is, and then it cuts over to Cyclops and Iceman arriving back at Factor 3's headquarters. And then of course somehow Eunice is basically teamed up with Mastermind, and the Vanisher Blob has gotten away, and of course you have Iceman and Cyclops believe they're outnumbered until Angel, Beast, and Jean Grey show up. I'm not calling her Marvel because she, despite the fact that's her code name during this time, I just refer to her as simply Jean Grey. And of course, Blob shows up completely out of nowhere. Yeah, they don't really explain exactly how the heck Blob got back there. Like, there he is. There's the Blob. He probably followed them, and of course, Xavier tells him to knock it off, and then he just has them team up to take on the Mutant Master. Reveals him basically he has nothing, where he basically really was against the mutants, and then they attack, and then which I think is supposed to be the new Brotherhood, because no Magnet, no Toad, and Banshee gets freed, and then Banshee yells out his cry, and apparently Mutant Master is actually an alien. An alien. Sorry about that. Man, that feels better. Yes, Mutant Master is an alien. Why? Don't know why. And of course, Mutant Master dies in a few panels. Apparently, he's killed by Banshee screams, and Eunice the Untouchable kills him. And of course, everybody allows them to go their separate ways. And here's something that kind of helps sets up basically what goes on with Charles Xavier after this particular story, where you have Changeling changing into Professor Charles Xavier. And of course, Mutant Master dies, and basically Xavier allows the Brotherhood to leave as allies. I think they're the Brotherhood. They don't call themselves the Brotherhood. They're just 4 X-Men villains. I just call them the Brotherhood because these guys later become the new Brotherhood after this. And then they all leave, and then the place explodes, and then the first story ends with Jean Grey revealing that she actually worked with Xavier with Xavier's permission, worked on and gave them new costumes. And here are the new costumes. Well, in the case of all these costumes, Cyclops and Jean Grey actually keep the same costumes up until the 80s. Angel will have another costume before this era ends, and of course Beast will still have this costume up until his run in Amazing Adventures. But one thing unique you got notice about Cyclops' costume, almost all of his costumes have the same color scheme, blue and gold. I guess the reason why that the artist did that is so that Cyclops can still be in his roots of having the original costume, even though after this issue they stopped wearing the costumes, and as far as I know, the original 5 in this particular time never put on the costumes ever again. They just wore this costumes for the rest of the time. And sometimes the artist would show up more of Jean's shoulders, depends upon what artist's perspective. It's like they can't keep the costume consistent when it comes to Jean's costume. And the issue kind of ends nicely, and of course, Beast is kind of uncomfortable with tight sleeves. But it's kind of a mild joke, nice one. And of course, then you have the issue continue with the Cyclops origin story, pretty much telling it from Cyclops' perspective after the previous issue. And he runs away from them. Apparently, he's run away from an orphanage, and of course, Fred Duncan still working with Charles Xavier, and of course, he tracks him down. And Scott was running some campfire, and cops show up. They try to take off his sunglasses because they think it's weird because he's wearing sunglasses at night. And this is nothing unusual. This is the stereotypical thing about Cyclops. Don't touch the glasses. His eye is dangerous. And of course, he puts the glasses back on. And then the issue ends with him meeting the first evil mutant. They don't say who he is in this issue. They reveal his name in the next issue. But this issue is actually pretty nice. And that ends that particular issue. In the next episode, I'm going to cover issues 40 to 42. Overall, what do I think of these 3 issues? I think the main story with Factory, I thought was a really interesting story. Nice build-up. Disappointing conclusion in a way, revealing who the Mutant Master was. An alien of all things. So, I have a funny feeling with the stuff that Mutant Master says, there might have been a rewrite here, because I think that maybe Roy Thomas, I have nothing to confirm this, that maybe he had plans to use Magneto in this storyline. But my guess is Stan Lee must have stepped in and it's like, oh, no, you can't use Magneto. Magneto's off limits. I don't know why Magneto was off limits, but he was, because throughout this particular run, Magneto makes no appearances. I will talk about the run overall in the next episode, which will be episode 20. But I give these 3 issues overall the first 2 issues anyways. I give those first 2 issues a 9 out of 10. The third part, I give a 8.5. The backup story starting off is actually really good. It's really exciting. I give that story a 9 so far anyways. And that's it for this episode. Alright. Stay tuned for the next episode, which will be episode 20, where I'm going to go over the last 3 issues in this book. And I'm also going to give my sort of thoughts overall on the Roy Thomas run. The first Roy Thomas run for the Uncanny X-Men series. Until then, see you there. Bye.